Welcome back to another episode of Love Living Local 315. We are your hosts, Scott and Kelly Great, and today we're excited to welcome Tim Best. Tim is a familiar voice to many in our community. He's the play-by-play announcer for Utica City FC, Utica University, and the Utica Blue Sox. And, you know, whether he's bringing the energy on the court, the pitch, the field, in the box, or off, he is becoming a voice that many local sports fans know. So we're diving into his journey, his passion for sports broadcasting, and what it means to him to represent Utica through the mic. You can't have a local podcast without bringing in. Are you the voice of Utica? Are you prepared to say you're the voice of Utica sports?
Pretty close to it. I have my hat in the ring in almost every major team in this area. So
we'll talk about it. But
sure.
Utica City, Utica University, the Utica Blue Sox, and every once in a while the Utica Comets.
Mm-hmm.
Tim Best is the PA, the voice that you hear when all exciting things happen. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Thanks for having me, Scott, Kelly. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be on, and I really don't have this is my first time actually being on a podcast where I talk about my stomping grounds, the 315.
Yeah.
This is a nice change of pace, and really looking forward to it.
Awesome. Yeah, because you do I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
You do a podcast of your own.
Yeah, I do. I did have a podcast on Big East basketball that I ran for 5 years, and then I retired it because I just didn't have the time and energy for it anymore. And during last year, I started a podcast along with a fellow alum of mine from Seton Hall. He was class of like 95 or something like that. He just found me through Twitter, and we finally got to have a podcast on Seton Hall basketball. We started it last year. We're on season 2 right now. But yeah, podcasting is something very familiar to me. But, like I said, first time actually talking about the 315. So
we'll get into it. But I just, for my own peace of mind here, Big East.
Yes,
grew up
sir.
on Big East basketball. So when you said he graduated in 95, I felt the tension there. Like you're like, he's old. I graduated in 95. So I just want to put that out there.
My apologies.
But no, you're good. But I share that because Big East basketball, for those that don't know, back in the 80s and 90s was
the real deal.
The real deal. And, Seton Hall certainly a part of that.
Mm-hmm.
What are they still in the Big East?
They are it's like the new Big East. If you will.
So I wasn't sure if they went to that America.
There's if they
went
there,
Conference of America, because some of them switched all over. Right?
Yeah, I think the holdouts from the old Big East, like Syracuse, Pitt, Notre Dame, you probably know the whole spiel by now. They all went to the ACC. A lot of the holdouts like UConn, Cincinnati, Rutgers for a year, and Louisville as well. They went to the American, and then Catholic. It was mainly the Catholic schools from the Big East. That was in Seton Hall, St. John's, Nova, Georgetown, Providence. They call them the Catholic Seven. And then they added Butler, Creighton, and Xavier from the Midwest. It was a really cool dynamic. And for me, when I was going to Seton Hall, that was heaven to me because I'm not really a football guy.
Yeah.
I root for Notre Dame, and Seton Hall, they don't have football. So it was perfect match for me. And it was a basketball-centric conference. That's how they got to be big when it started out. And for me, perfect sweet spot. I'm a basketball junkie for life.
Awesome. When they brought a team from Idaho into the Big East, I was out. Right? Boise State's in the Big East?
Well, they were initially, when all the realignment was happening, they were thinking Boise State and San Diego State, and I think TCU, but then that completely...
Oh, it didn't happen. Okay.
That didn't happen.
It was Stanford's in the Atlantic Coast Conference.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
I still have to laugh about that.
Let's move on.
Let's reel it back to home. Let's talk a little bit about home here and tell us about who you are. You grew up here, went to college at Seton Hall.
Yes, I did.
Decided to come back.
Yeah, so I was born right here in this area. I lived in South Utica up until I was 6, and my family and I, we moved up to Marcy to be closer to my mom's parents, and so I went to Whitesboro first grade until graduation, and then when I went to college, Syracuse was the dream for me. Newhouse School, most prestigious journalism school in the country. Unfortunately, though, I got waitlisted. So I kind of had to look elsewhere, and I knew 2 friends of mine from Whitesboro who were a couple years older than me. They were there, and at the time, so one of them texted me because I talked to Seton Hall at a career fair in the fall, and my friend Johnny was like, "You should come up." and check it out. It's worth a shot. And I'm like, 4-hour drive. All right, let's just see what happens. And I was hooked. A lot of people, you think Seton Hall, like it's pretty well-known Division I school, mainly because of basketball, but it's a really tiny campus. Like it had that big school feel, but everybody knew everybody. And that I related to that so much. And I just felt at home being around campus. And Syracuse, on the other hand, it was way too massive for me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think once I went to the accepted students day in April of 2014, yeah, I just knew, I'm like, yeah, this is the spot I was going to go into. I made a decision video, like, you know, how they have like the National Signing Day, they have the hats lined up. And I told the world to, you know, tip my cap to LeBron James. The decision happened a few years earlier, and I said I was taking my talents to South Orange, which is where Seton Hall University is, and announced to the world I was going to be a Pirate.
Awesome.
Nice.
And you did communication, journalism, broadcasting. What was your focus?
I was a journalism major.
Okay.
I was directed that way by someone in the communication and art school because that was going to be more so encompassing what I wanted to do more on the broadcasting end versus like broadcast and visual media. That would have been more on the technical end of broadcasting. But yeah, I really got a lot out of it. I had professors. My senior year, I had a sports media professor who wrote for Sports Illustrated for 20 years. He had a Heisman vote. And my senior year, we got to submit his vote for the Heisman, which was for Baker Mayfield that year in 2017.
Okay, that's really cool.
Yeah, and I got to do a lot of great things with our radio station WSOU, which my junior year we actually won the Marconi Award as the best non-commercial station in the country, and I had a lot of great opportunities to do high-level college broadcasting, especially with the basketball team. The craziest story, though, my senior year, I had the call along with one of my best friends, Mike, and we went to Providence in what it's not known as this now, but the Dunkin' Donuts Center, aka the Dunk. And it was a seasonably warm day in February, and the ice underneath, because that's where the Providence Bruins play, the ice underneath the court started to melt a little bit, and the floor started to get a little slippery. Our leading scorer sprains his ankle in the first half, and then the second half, more guys start slipping and sliding, and they suspend the game with 13 minutes left and finish it the very next day on campus, which to this day, I'm pretty sure, unless I've missed something, is the only game that's ever been suspended and then restarted in the history of the Big East. Let's see the math, like in the 45, 46-year history of the Big East, it's the only one that's ever been suspended, and I unfortunately had the distinction of having the call for that.
We're going to have Spina fact check you on that. Make sure that it works.
If memory serves me right, I actually have a photographic memory.
Listen, say it with confidence, and everyone will believe it. That's my MO. Right?
That's actually a really good policy. Probably should have done that myself.
What do you love most about what you do? You focus primarily on broadcast now, right? Or do you do some writing?
Yeah, I think broadcast is probably what I do most, and I think I realized around the time that I transitioned, because when I started with the Blue Sox, they were known as the Utica Brewers. So I was a senior in high school when I got hired to do play-by-play, and I did that for my first 2 years. When new ownership took over and rebranded to the Blue Sox, I transitioned to the PA booth, and I realized probably within the first week of the season that, yeah, I like doing PA a lot more, because there's something about having an entire crowd in the palm of your hand. It's really empowering that you can dictate a crowd's reaction and help play into a big moment, or even just, if you want to have a little bit of fun. Like, I think one game I got bored and I started doing a Bob Sheppard impression.
Yeah.
And funny enough, Bob Sheppard was the inspiration for why I wanted to become a PA guy. I was at a Yankee game when I was 10 years old, and I heard Bob Sheppard's voice, literally, and you can find the
voice of God.
Literally, like the voice of God was talking to me. I'm like, okay, I want to become a public address announcer some way, shape, or form. And it's crazy to me that my dream when I was 10, I'm still living now almost 20 years later.
That's awesome. All right, so now you're not going to get away with that. We're going to need the Bob Sheppard. I mean,
all right.
take a minute if you need it. You're going to introduce me.
Yep. All right. What position did you play growing up if you played ball?
Center field.
All right. Now batting, center fielder, number 2, Scott Greats. Number 2.
I like it.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people that don't know about Bob Sheppard, he was a speech pathology professor.
Yeah, he was professionally trained.
Oh, yeah. And he's the best of the best. Yeah. And, however, what I learned was don't try to be the next whoever, be the first you.
Yeah.
So that's something I've really harnessed over the course of my PA career. And if you go to UCFC games, everybody will know how to announce the 1 minute remaining in the period. I always do the and like I've heard people imitating me behind me in the beer garden as I'm doing it. I'm like,
might have been us.
We've never sat in the bear garden. I want to sit there.
Well, we got goals. 25 goals.
We've got goals. We've got to get to a game and sit in the beer garden.
A lot of season left to do so too.
I'm glad that you started talking about the UCFC and the soccer team, because that's what season it is right now. Let's talk about indoor soccer and how drastically different it is from baseball, like announcing and the energy and the pace of the game. And do you love it?
Oh, yeah. The thing is, like, I was never really a big soccer person growing up. So when I took the job at UCFC in 2019, I was like, I knew this is a big opportunity for me. I'm not really a big soccer guy, but I'm just going to go with it. And within the first couple of games, like, this rules. This is so much fun. It's basically the best way I could describe it to people who don't know. It's like if you're playing hockey with a soccer ball. Yeah. You have the same concepts of 5 attackers on the field plus a goalie. You have the line changes. You have power plays. It's virtually the same, if ever just oversimplified. But yeah, it's so much fun. The atmosphere is what really makes it. I feel like that really goes for a lot of sports. Like the atmosphere of college basketball is what helps makes it what it is. Same goes with college football. And I kind of like took those elements to help improve my presentation with the Blue Sox to make it like that, to turn it essentially into more like a party-like atmosphere. You have more fun at a party compared to, if you take it a little more. When you take it more seriously, it's not as fun. Mm-hmm. So that's why I try to be a lot more loose and have my own little fun things that just catch on.
There's a lot of crap to be serious about in the world. Like when we're at a sporting event, it's not time to be serious, right? And the hockey thing's funny too, because they're literally playing in a hockey rink, on a hockey rink. Mm-hmm. The boards and the speed of the game, the knock on soccer, for those that don't watch soccer, is always it's slow. There's no goals, low scoring game. Well, not an indoor, like this, right? I mean, the average score is usually double digits when you combine the two teams. So you're going to see a lot of goals. You're going to see fast paced action. We've got the beer garden in Utica. What are some other things that you do to just up the energy and excitement and entertainment level for fans?
One thing that I actually learned from the public address announcer of Seton Hall men's basketball named Tim McClune, he's got to be bare minimum like 75, but his voice still to this day sounds velvety smooth. And what he taught me was you got to have your voice for the biggest moments, because if you burn yourself out in like the first or second quarter and then there's a big goal that happens that gives them a lead in the last minute or something, you got to have enough in the tank to really inflect and sell it to the crowd. And also he taught me, try to let the crowd dictate the moment. If you overexert yourself, you don't really give the crowd a reaction to have the pop that you desire. So, I owe a lot of how I am professionally now to Tim McClune. So I just want to, Tim, I hope you're listening to this. You're the goat to me. So I definitely got to give a shout out to Mr. McClune. And I've still taken his advice. 7 years later, I still implement a lot of the strategies that he has, and honestly probably wouldn't be where I am from a developmental standpoint if it wasn't for him. So awesome. Got to give him a shout out. So
we're talking about all the fun stuff. Let's talk about obstacles and stuff that you've overcome to get to this point.
Yeah. So a lot of people, those that are in my circle know that I'm on the autism spectrum. I was diagnosed when I was 3, and my parents, they really had they had a lot of stones to streamline me in with the, I guess, quote unquote, normal kids. But they knew that there was just something in me that, with my intelligence level and having the gift of a photographic memory, like when I was a kid, I remember like studying like sports almanacs and memorizing all the Super Bowl winners and World Series and the whole 9 yards of that. They knew I had the acumen to thrive in the classroom, and they felt like in order for me to thrive and become everything that they saw in me, they would have to streamline me in. And it was a risk, but you know, the risk obviously paid off, and they clearly knew something and saw something in me. So honestly, I owe a lot to where I am now to them, because of the fact that, you know, they rolled the dice on me, and the odds, you could argue, probably not in my favor, but obviously that, you know, belief, their belief in me is kind of helped instill the belief in myself as well. Whenever I would question myself in terms of, you know, my abilities, and if I can get to the next level and get to where the next level where I want to be in my career, and just even just personal development, I just had to think to myself, if they had that belief in me, I got to have the same belief in myself. So
that's awesome.
Do you talk to other people, other kids really who are on the spectrum? Do you pay it forward? Do you pour back into them, give that belief to them, or is that something you know, that you're interested in doing in the future to help them with confidence like you have? Oh,
absolutely. I know that with the Blue Sox, the last 3 years we've had an autism acceptance night, and we would partner with Kelberman.
Kelberman is huge now. The fact that we have a center like that locally is huge.
Oh, yeah. And I remember, like, Kelberman was around when I was a kid, and I can't remember if it was them or UCP that was the one that provided the diagnosis. But, yeah, Kelberman really does mean a lot to me, having to work with them the last 3 years. So for the autism acceptance night, they would have special, you know, autism jerseys. Like, I think year one we had, you know, our logo, and then like on the bottom it would have like the puzzle pieces all together, and you know, we auction them off for fans to buy, and the proceeds going to Kelberman. And it's such a great cause. Obviously it's near and dear to my heart, you know, and it's great that not only do we have the autism acceptance night, it really supplements and complements the Pink the Park night that we have every year for breast cancer awareness. So the fact that they added this a few years ago, obviously near and dear to my heart. But yeah, to answer that's the long form answer your question. The short one being absolutely, and I hope you know, Kelberman, I'm essentially putting the bad signal out to you. I would be more than happy, and it'd be my honor and privilege to, you know, give hope to, you know, kids like me
that
have the
for sure.
I want to be the living example. Like, you know, this isn't like, it's not a disability. It's really like a gift, and you gotta figure
Utilize
out
it.
realize and figure out what to do with it.
Yeah.
And you know, if I could probably see in a lot of them like what I saw in, essentially like looking in the mirror of myself when I was a kid. So if I could give them the inspiration to dream big and achieve big like I have, paying it forward, I feel like that's something that I always strive to do, and what I actually want to do, instead of, you know, just like, there's difference striving to do it and then actually doing it. So I strive to do it, but I actually want to do it now.
Cool.
All right. If someone's listening and wants to follow in your footsteps with broadcasting and sports, what would be the one piece of advice you would give them?
I feel like for me, it's know exactly what you want and have a plan for how you want to go about achieving it. I had my plan A, which was Newhouse. But you got to be ready for any curveball that comes your way. So the curveball was getting waitlisted, and I had to explore other options. And you got to realize, I've been a big believer in going where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. You know, I wasn't going to be really celebrated at Cuse because I would have needed at least a year just to get in the door and actually have real broadcasting opportunities. Whereas my freshman year at Seton Hall, I was doing a men's game my freshman year at Villanova. And Villanova, you know, during those years, you know, they were insane. They won 2 titles in 3 years towards the end of the 2010s. And here I am as a freshman getting to do a game at the Pavilion, and working with 2 guys, one of which he's going to be a huge star in the sports broadcasting landscape, named John Fanta. Great guy and great broadcaster, but an even better person. So I definitely want to plug him. And then another guy who currently works for Nesson, the Northeast Sports Network, which does Bruins games, the Celtics, and the legendary Beanpot Classic that they have for Boston, Massachusetts teams for hockey every year at the college level. It's a sleeper thing. And the fact that I got to my first men's basketball broadcast at WSU, I got to do it with 2 high profile guys now like that. It's crazy to think about in hindsight.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know, it's so important. I love how you said that, because a lot of our young kids, or kids that are, going to college, they have a plan and they have a path. And when they're faced with adversity, they are so eager to just give up and not be able to overcome adversity, pivot, go down a different path. So that's a super awesome message that you just gave to our young kids, that we have a son like that he has a hard time when it doesn't go the way that he thinks it's going to go, and then his day is just shot.
Spoke at a career day yesterday at our alma mater at Frankfurt. Really that was my message, was it's who, not how, right? And build this network and put yourself into situations where you're the greenest person in the room, where everyone is more experienced, more qualified than you, and learn from them. And that's, really something you did in spades. You put yourself around people who were already doing it at a high level and learn from them. I love the quote, celebrated, not tolerated. That's fantastic. And your optimism and your glass half full attitude, I applaud you for. And another thing, as I was reading your bio here, you were the president of the student section the last 2 years at Seton Hall. So if you want to talk about how that came about.
Oh, man. Obviously, when you grow up watching college basketball, like my parents had season tickets for Syracuse, so I would go to games all the time when I was a kid, and I would see Otto's Army behind the basket. And I'm like, if I could, be in the front row and see what it's like experiencing college basketball at that level as a student, it would just be like a dream come true. Obviously, I got that experience somewhere else. And the great thing was, considering where Seton Hall was when I got there, they were in a tough spot. They hadn't made the tournament since like 2006. And I got there in 2014, mind you. So it'd been quite some time. And
it's kind of like where Syracuse is now.
I hate to admit it, but yeah, you could very well make the argument. Like you got a point there. So when I think my thing was, I think it was around that time when Hunter Pence signs became a thing, where fans would make these signs about Giants outfielder Hunter Pence, and they were just like simple, like non-major insulting signs about, like, I don't know, like eating pizza with a fork. Like Hunter Pence eats pizza with a fork, like simple stuff like that. I'm like, okay, I could probably do this at a high level. And the first game I did it for, it was the first annual Garden State Hardwood Classic, Seton Hall and Rutgers. They play every year. And that was the first year that they were going to be playing for this rivalry trophy in the shape of, New Jersey, with Seton Hall and Rutgers logos and in the location where their campuses are. And for the first annual one, it was going to be on our turf. And I was thinking to myself and to friends that I had made, like, I want to make some signs and go hard. And turns out, it was a great success then. So we started to do it when we came back for the spring semester, and it kind of just took on a life of its own. And it just got better and better every year. And it helped that with the passion and vigor, I essentially found out the formula for how to get the front row home game in and home game out. And I didn't miss a single home game from like halfway through my sophomore year until I graduated. And so much so that moving on, junior and senior year, I got to go to March Madness twice.
That's awesome.
And, players, they have their complimentary tickets that they can give to friends and family. So both years, one of the players would hook me up and my buddies with tickets. And so we got to sit few rows behind the bench in Greenville, South Carolina as a junior. And then a senior year in Wichita, Kansas, literally 3 rows behind the bench, camera side. So you could see me and my buddies, acting a fool in March Madness. Like, and that's the one thing if you love March Madness, find a way, somehow, some way. Don't go your whole life as a college basketball fan without trying to see March Madness just one time.
Yep.
All right, so I got to ask, what the best sign, right? I mean, I love watching College Game Day, the creativity of these kids. Anyone says that our next generation is in trouble, they're not. They're smarter than us, and then some of the creativity is off the charts. So what was your favorite or one of your favorite signs?
So I got a couple really funny stories. So my junior year, there was this guy on Xavier named JP McCura. And if it wasn't for Grayson Allen, he would have been the most hated player in college basketball because they were there the same exact frame of time, 2014 to 18. So JP, detestable player, he was just an antagonizer. So what happened, I think maybe a month after the 2016 season ended, he got caught at a bar in Cincinnati with a fake ID, and let's just put it this way, he decided to take his pants off. So if he had more serious offenses, I wouldn't have done what I did, which was put his mugshot on a sign. And I not only did that, I wrote, "When your mugshot is better than your jump shot."
That's a good one.
That's good.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And it was crazy that for my Big East podcast, The Igloo, 2021, I actually got to interview him.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah,
and he told me, I'll be honest with you, if I was in your shoes, I probably would have done the same thing.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was just like real recognizes real moments. And speaking of real recognizing real, Jay Wright, one of the best coaches of all time from Nova. My senior year, I found his high school senior year photo, and I blew that up, and it turns out his real first name is actually Gerald, Jerold. So I blew up his picture. I just wrote "Sup Gerald" underneath it. Fox had like their in-studio crew in Newark for the game that night. And Rob Stone, who notably is a Colgate alum, I was telling him about this sign, and he's like, "Where is it?" So I point out where it is, like front row, and he finds it. And I come back to my seat maybe like 10, 15 minutes before tip off. And all of a sudden I find the sign, and it's signed by Jay Wright, and he's slyly wrote underneath the signature, "Go Cats." So I'm assuming they interviewed Jay before the game, and Rob or someone else must have showed him the sign. So
Do you still have it?
Oh, I honestly, I hold on to almost every sign that I've had.
God,
I think there's only 2 signs I've given out. The most notable one, there's a kid on Butler named Tyler Lewis who played at NC State prior. So I made a sign about him. He had a very childlike appearance, if you will. And I wrote that he still orders off the kids menu. And he came up to us at halftime because they were warming up on the basket facing the student section. And he comes up to me and my friends, and he's like, "That's a really funny sign. Can I have it?" I'm like, "Wait, what? Yeah, can I have it?" This is a first. Yeah, since you asked so politely. Yeah. So I found a buddy of mine who was working in like the sports marketing department as like an intern with Seton Hall. And I'm like, "Bernie, you got to get this sign over to Tyler. Can you get this to Butler locker room just to see what happens?" And he ran it over. And then about an hour after I got back to campus in my dorm room, I'm going through Twitter, and all of a sudden I see him holding up my sign on a plane. And the sports information director from Butler, I think he captioned it like, "Who doesn't like mac and cheese?" And I'm like, oh my God, this is like my going viral moment. And I'm like, did I make it? And I interviewed Tyler for the Igloo. And I asked him before we started the interview, I'm like, "Hey, do you still have that sign?" He's like, "Oh yeah, it's at my parents' house in North Carolina." I'm like, my man, it's crazy that it's been almost 10 years since that incident, and it's still remembered so fondly.
You gotta professional, and I guess college kids are kind of professionals now because they get paid and whatnot. But they gotta expect it. We had an absolute blast in 2014 when you were at Seton Hall as a freshman. We were on the stage at the Utica Odd behind Richard Bachman,
oh my God,
who was the goalie for Oklahoma City at the time when the Comets had their big run in the finals, and we made it our life's mission
to
try to ruin
him.
Richard Bachman's life.
Oh my God, it was terrible.
Not so much with signs, but with
heckling. It was.
And our go-to, and it's funny because now our son owns a Kia, but this is 11 years ago, and Kias weren't that cool, and so we just relentlessly tortured him about how he drives a Kia. and he left the lights on in his Kia, and like all the just nonstop. And then his height, he was very short, and the Kentucky Derby was coming up. We asked him what horse he was riding in the Derby. So I shared that because you're with the comments loosely, and we're talking about heckling, and so Utica wins the series. The team can't get out until the next day, the Oklahoma City, and so they go out to the bar, and Bachman just goes to the bartender, gives them all kinds of cash, and says, "Just put cases of beer on the bar." He goes, "Whoever wants it can have it. Utica has the greatest fans." And one of the ticket guys was talking to him, and he goes, "Hey, did you sell the tickets to the people behind me?" And he goes, "No, I didn't. A buddy of mine did." And because we were there every game, because we were like the good luck charm, so they gave it to us the stage.
They gave us the stage every
night.
In the playoffs.
And he goes, "All right, just curious, because if they were here, I was gonna go punch him in the face."
Oh, yeah. They definitely wanted a piece of Scott.
So funny story, by the way. Just you talk about the superstition of you guys being the good luck charm on the stage. So when Seton Hall won the Big East tournament my sophomore year, that was the first time they won it since '93. For context, I wasn't even born when that happened. So I was at the Big East tournament, all 3 games, and I wore the same exact outfit. And yes, that includes boxers and socks, unwashed.
Oh my gosh!
Oh boy!
Like to preserve the. Listen,
you were good up until the unwashed part.
It was all about good juju.
Too much information.
Good juju, bad hygiene.
Good karma. But hey, we have a trophy we got a trophy in the trophy case now in South Orange. But yeah, and the funny thing is, Seton Hall beat Nova in the championship for the Big East, and then that was the year Villanova beat UNC on the buzzer beater, and Villanova. You could argue that if Seton Hall didn't humble them a little bit by stunning them in the Garden, they probably don't go on that run where they win the Natty.
Yeah. Archie Biacono, right?
Archie Diacono had the assist to Jenkins. I'll never forget watching that in my dorm room, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. We just beat these guys 3 weeks ago, and now they just won the national championship.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we lost in the first round in Denver.
Well, we can go all day long with you with stories, but
in sports, we're huge sports people.
Oh yeah.
But we end all these with what we try to do, rapid fire 5 questions for you.
Hit me.
Yeah, he says hit me. Go ahead, Kyle.
Best game you've ever announced?
I've ever announced? Oh, that is honestly, I would say probably 2023 playoff game against the Diamond Dogs. Blue Sox and Diamond Dogs, they've had this local rivalry for years, and that was the first time we'd ever met in the playoffs.
That's awesome.
And for a chance to go to the division final, and we go down 2-0 early, and we clawed our way back, and walk-offs were like our thing that year. We had a stretch in early July where we were 9-10, but we walked off 3 games in a row and just rode the wave of momentum. And we play the Diamond Dogs, and we walk it off again. And we do it against the best pitcher of the year in the league, Aiden Cologrand, get a broken bat single, a bunt single that leads to an error that puts runners on second and third, and then infield in little knobber. That's a great thing about baseball. You don't have to hit it crazy, and it just fell over the infield, and it sends us to Amsterdam, and just the atmosphere and help make that moment special. That was just so validating.
Full circle moment here in this conversation, talking about Bob Sheppard, and now you're talking about how that went down, and it just brought back 2001 World Series when the Yanks walked off, time and time again to take the lead, and then ended up losing on a broken bat, bloop with the infield drawn in, walk off for the Diamondbacks. So you've shared a lot about yourself. Appreciate that. What's one thing that most people don't know about you?
Well, I feel like I don't make this very public. However, I don't know why, but I have an affinity for boy bands. I really do.
That's cool.
It's funny for me to say this to admit, but I'm a Backstreet Boys stan. I have 2 of their albums lying around at home.
Well, you're not the only one. I mean, they've sold millions of albums.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, but I mean, given the broader context of things, it's a little surprising. I mean, don't get me wrong though. NSYNC, love them too. I always loved to mess with the other team whenever they would hit BP at Murnane, and I would, create these very elaborate playlists, and one of them was just nothing but boy band music. So, like my love for them, I just project onto opposing teams. It's great.
What is your favorite way to spend a day off locally?
I would say making sure I get something local, like food wise. I know on Tuesdays it's a Utica thing. They got that buy one get one pizza special. Theirs is to die for. Yeah, just anywhere local, especially if I got like one my brother and eventually when my sister-in-law is back in the States now that she's got her green card. We as a family, we love Giorgio's, and anytime we're like, oh, we're going to Giorgio's tonight, like I just salivate at the thought I'm getting a chicken parm there.
Seems to be the go-to for people from out of town. They come here and they all want to go to Georgia.
Well, it does. It gives you that hometown feel, and the food's really, really good.
All right, this is going to be a tough one for you, Tim. One word to describe Tim Best.
Ooh, I say charismatic. Even better yet, I like the word polarizing.
Ooh.
Because I not that I like to draw attention, but like how I do things, and it's like I'm everywhere locally, and I'm also a very opinionated person, for better or for worse, with food, music, sports, literally anything. So I think polarizing is a very good term to describe me, because I think I really am,
cool,
one of a kind, almost, not to like sound egotistical or anything, but like I got to stand out one way or another, right?
Well, we know you love your jobs here, but what is your dream job?
I would say probably the dream job probably be doing PA whenever Tim McClune finally decides to hang it up, replacing him on the PA mic for my alma mater. That would be just a dream.
And it only makes sense to go from one Tim to another.
It really does make sense. Yeah, it's a perfect transition, seamless.
How do people connect with you? How do they find you?
I feel like my social media handles are pretty simple. Twitter, Instagram. I'm sorry, Elon, I'm never calling it X. I hate, and it's called it's called a tweet, not a post. So anyways, my handle there is The Real Timmy Ice, because someone tried to impersonate me freshman year on Twitter, and someone from DePaul, their cousin, decided to threaten said fake account. So I had to make sure that people knew that this is the actual me, not to be mistaken with anyone else. So The Real Timmy Ice, Twitter, Instagram, Tim Best on Facebook as well. I feel like I don't just talk about sports. I on Twitter, like I think I just put out if I find something funny to make a meme about, like I'll do that too. So yeah, The Real Timmy Ice. That's probably easily the best way you can find me. Twitter and Instagram. I tweet a lot, but I feel like I should be upping engagement Instagram wise, especially now that I'm in a pickleball league, and I'm going to be dropping a lot of highlights this past week. I made the play of my life. I dove for a ball. I ripped a hole in my wind pants. Got the point on the same hit. Like I need to text the guy who runs the league over at Borza's Rec Center in Westmo. Like, people need to see how insane of a play that was. Like, you got to see it to believe it.
That's great.
Maybe someone should do a PA for your pickleball matches.
Even just play-by-play. Something's better than nothing. They showed pickleball on TV on MSG Network.
I watched a dart tournament the other day.
Cornhole. You were very invested in that cornhole tournament.
I don't know how they're so good.
Yeah, the dart.
They make it every time.
Yeah, and the thing is, have you seen the videos of the darts players like in international tournaments making their entrance? Oh my God.
I didn't call you in the bedroom. I was watching it alone, and I wanted to call you. Like, there's like thousands of people at a dart match, and they're just partying and drinking and cheering for darts.
Yeah, this one.
I've never played darts sober. Have you? You got to do it. I mean,
well, we never played in January. That's the only month we're sober.
Oh my God.
So this one guy, like, he comes out to Titanium by Sia, and you could hear the entire crowd belting the chorus.
It is insane.
All right, we got to get to the Utica City Beer Garden.
Yes.
We got to get to an international dart match.
Yep.
And we've got to watch Tim Best play pickleball. That's our things to do list in 2025.
And we have never seen a Diamond Dogs game in Utica. I think we
should do that. Our boy Travis Heiser. We're always out in Little Falls.
But we got to come to
we got to make that happen.
Field, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, and the thing is too. So not only do I do the PA, I also handle all the music and sound effects too. So if you want to, if you get not only do you see a baseball game, but you see a little bit of a comedy hour or 2 or 3,
Beautiful.
depending on how it goes. That's Murnane's the place to be this summer for that.
All right. Tim Best, appreciate you coming on, my friend.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Scott and Kelly. Pleasure to be on. Really fun time.